Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the main stage of the Business Transformation Operational Excellence World Summit, where we accelerate culture, business, and digital transformations, and we create environments where great people and great ideas can connect. And our next session is all about that. Great people and great ideas connecting for successful, large-scale business transformations. And I'm very excited to welcome Riaz Attar and Kelly Pierce to the stage and to have a discussion, an open discussion about the secrets of large-scale business transformation success. But also, I'm sure there will be some lessons learned along the way that will be shared here. So let me first start by doing a brief introduction on Riaz and Kelly. Riaz Attar is an accomplished strategist, business and digital transformation expert, operational excellence leader, and project and change management professional. He's a book author and an industry award winner with a track record in increasing profits and delivering strategic initiatives. He's recognized for his ability to help strategize business architecture, identify areas to improve operational outcomes, champion continuous improvement and innovation efforts, deliver challenging cross-functional programs, lead and coach winning teams, and inspire staff to welcome change and deliver ambitious results. Riaz, welcome. Great to have you here with us. Next to Riaz, we have Kelly Pierce, who is the Senior Vice President of Operational Excellence at MasterCard. Her organization is responsible for driving the transformation of MasterCard services through innovative technology, streamlined processes, seamless support, and outstanding customer service. Prior to joining MasterCard, Kelly spent 9 years in operations and technology at Nielsen, where she focused on strategic planning, process reengineering, technology-enabled cost reduction, quality improvement, and program management. Kelly, wonderful to have you here. And now, look at the surprise guest appearance we have here. Anu George is back with us. Anu, thank you for making the time. I know you're in a board meeting, and you're coming out of that to be here with us. Really awesome. You have just enriched us further. Just want to make sure that you can hear us and we can hear you okay, Anu.
Yeah, I can hear you, and you can hear me?
I can hear you clearly. So that's very good, Anu. So let me do for our audience a short introduction on Anu. She has a long list of accomplishments. Very glad to have you with us here and talk about large-scale transformation, Anu. Anu is the COO for technology and transformation for Morningstar, the leading independent investment research firm. Prior to Morningstar, Anu has worked at Unilever and General Electric. She works at the intersection of emerging technologies, strategy, leadership, and operational excellence. She's most energized when she's helping leaders discern the trends of the future and help them successfully embrace that future. She's a frequent speaker on topics such as the future of work, driving transformation, diversity and inclusion, business excellence, and leadership. Anu, privileged to have you with us. And I would like to start with this amazing panel by just giving the audience a little bit of context on your own. I went away for a minute there. If I could, for just a brief moment, have you just give the audience a little bit of context about your journey on large-scale transformations. That would be terrific. Let me start with Kelly on that, please.
Sure. So thank you very much for hosting us, Jose. It's been a pleasure to join everyone. Very quickly, MasterCard has gone through, as many of you might be aware, a tremendous amount of growth over the past 10, 15 years. And in particular, the part of the business that I support has been one of the major drivers of growth. But it's been something that's been largely driven by a huge influx of personnel, and we're looking to productize our business, leverage technology to enable scale, because we've seen in our division 10, 20 times growth over the past 3 to 5 years, and we're expecting to continue that. So without radically transforming the way that we operate, we're not going to be able to achieve that vision. So it's been a wild ride, and we look forward to a lot more excitement in the years ahead.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Riaz, tell us a little bit about your background, the transformations that you have been involved with, please.
Absolutely, Jose. Thank you again for having me. So as some of you may know, I used to work for Caesars Entertainment I led the transformation, operational excellence, and project management. And there for about 5 to 6 years, we had to transform technology, culture, processes, data. The business or the industry at that time was not growing, and we were asked to meet expectations of the market, which is about 7% growth, and but the annually, and the industry growth was 2%. So we had to come up with revenue increase ideas, with cost cutting ideas, with improvement ideas in technologies and processes and people to in order to meet those objectives, and we successfully deliver that.
That is fantastic. Thank you for that, Riaz. And Anu, tell us a little bit about the journey of Morningstar. You have been on this journey for several years now, and the transformation continues. Tell us the audience a little bit more what that has looked like.
Sure. And, actually, I was just looking at my designation, which is incorrectly shown here, but it's CEO for Technology and Transformation. And it reflects my journey, actually. I've done, I've been at Mornings for about a decade now and done several transformations. One is the whole lean transformation, where we brought in lean way of working and continuous improvement and operational excellence. Then I moved into software development. We brought in the agile way of working and made the organization rather agile. We develop our products very differently than we did about a decade ago. And off late, I've been in the technology organization, and last couple of years working with the team in Morningstar, trying to bring in RPA, AI, and machine learning, especially in our data collections world. So been to a range of different transformations as the technologies around us progress and as the organization progresses and grows.
That's terrific. So many different hats, and it speaks to the evolution of transformations as well, the different stages that you're on. So let me start with that. Where are these transformations today? And this one is really for Kelly and Anu here on at what stage you are on your transformation.
Sure, I'm happy to start us off. We have a lot of similarities to what it sounds like Anu has been experiencing at Morningstar as well, that we're rapidly embracing more and more technology to help enable this. So I mentioned this briefly in our introduction. We must leverage platforms, we must leverage AI, because the more that we continue to rely on our personnel to exclusively be the drivers of growth, it's just not a scalable solution. And frankly, the digital landscape is changing so rapidly. You have to be able to embrace these technologies in order to stay fresh and stay relevant. And our clients are going through the same kind of digital transformation on their side. So to whatever extent MasterCard can power and enable, it will help. In terms of where we are in that journey, I would say that we're certainly not experienced, but we're not inexperienced either. We have some really great sort of legacy platforms that are helping get us a really great start, but embracing those new technologies is really going to be what propels us. So we have a tremendous roadway ahead of us of change that we anticipate, which is why having a really strong foundation and clear vision of what you want for your transformation to enable and how your organization can rally around that idea to support it is going to be critically important for future success.
I think my answer would mirror somewhat what Kelly said. If I was to say I wouldn't say we are very advanced, but we are somewhere between early to midpoint of our transformation when it comes to adopting emerging technologies. We have a chief data officer who's really doing some wonderful work in driving our data analytics platform and our data lake, basically, ensuring that our data is freely available in all our products for different people to use it for different purposes. We are definitely, adopting RP in a very big way. When it comes to AI, machine learning, NLP, I can see slowly, small experiments springing up across different parts of the organization, which is what you want. You want a very organic adoption of this, not like a top-down adoption. So we are beginning to see that mushroom across the organization. And I just came off another call, and we were talking of, bringing in speakers to talk about innovation. And I could see the hunger and openness among the leaders to do more of that. So I would kind of say not fully advanced, but definitely not at the beginning either. Kind of making good progress.
Very good. I want to talk about that evolution of transformation. I'm going to start with you, Riaz, on this. But before I ask the question, I want to remind the audience that I monitor your questions in real time and you can upvote each other's questions. So load your questions up, okay? And I'm going to shift to your questions very quickly here as I see them come up. And this is not a scripted, rehearsed thing that we want to do by any means. So we want to know your questions in your context, what matters to you most. Now, Riaz, I'm going to start with you on this one. You have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of transformations, and some transformations they are designed, others they evolve, and let's talk a little bit about governance. On what type of governance or lack of governance have you seen on transformations that you have been involved with, and what is the impact of a governance model for the transformation itself?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Jose. I mean, so look, specifically with big organizations, again, we have to be nimble. We have to adapt to the changes in the environment. The customers are asking for better, faster, cheaper. The competition is, they're attacking us from different angles. So we have to be nimble, and we have to deliver on technology and operational excellence. The thing with big organizations is that you can easily get distracted. There are many people, many departments, many priorities. Each one of them believe that they are the most important. And so they usually like to go and do their own thing, specifically if you have multiple branches or multiple divisions. So when you start to do this, you put your company at risk and you lose economies of scale. And we see that all the time. I probably managed to save hundreds of millions of dollars by centralization and shared services. Uh, Now, when we introduce this, we somehow introduce bureaucracy. So it's a fine line between governance and bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is evil. Governance is needed. So if I have to say it differently, and again, I would love. There's so many things I want to talk today about today. I mean, Kelly and Anu just mentioned a few things about RPAs and so on and so forth. But going back to your note about governance, let's say for example RPA, you start one pilot. We did it. We saved about like $20 million a year doing RPAs, and then everybody else wants RPA, so they started doing their own thing. It's like, wait a second, we have a platform, we need to have some sort of governance and so on and so forth. And the same thing applies to purchases. The same thing applies to project intake initiatives, because if we get like distracted about all those efforts, and because everybody wants to do something and we have limited capacity, limited budget, limited resources, we want to make sure as a corporate that we steer the ship in the right direction, and make sure that the people are utilizing the assets that we have and the capabilities that aligns with the strategy of the company, because sometimes they may do something that may not align with the company's strategies as well. Again, like I touched upon a few topics here, but that will be my short answer.
Yeah, I like some of the perspectives you have brought up there. So, and for Kelly or Anu here, what have you found to be maybe I don't know if there's a best, but maybe a better governance model that has helped you with mastering these contradictions and complexities that Riaz talked about between good governance and overly bureaucratic systems. What have you found to be the sweet spot for that?
I think when you talk of governance, there are, first of all, the first thing is, what are the metrics you're looking at? And one of the things we realize is you don't just look at the outcome metrics, but I call it like the behavioral metrics. And what I mean by that is, it's not whether you achieved your goal, did you get this innovation done, happen or not, that's your outcome metrics. But behavioral metrics could be, and I use the word behavioral very broadly, to be honest, but it's things like, do you have the right amount of resources? So are you creating the atmosphere to help those teams who are innovating to innovate properly? Are you ensuring that you have the right mix of people in, we created cross-functional squads to drive the innovation. Are you ensuring that you have the right mix of people? And what I mean by right mix of people is your if you really want to drive innovation, the profile of the people in these squads cannot just be a microcosm of your current organization, because then you're just going to get the same outcomes as the current organization is getting. So you probably want to get people who are more, broad-minded, people who are more open-minded, people who are more experimentative in nature, more innovative, etc., bold. So, those kind of metrics. Then we put in metrics like, okay, we've created these squads, but are they really devoting their time? So you could create the squads on paper, but they're still pulled in 15 directions. So are you making sure? So, we created a whole lot of behavioral metrics to make sure that we are creating that environment and the foundation for good innovation work to happen. So that's number one, I would say, on governance. So your way you think of governance should be very different than you would normally think when you're driving innovation. It's a little different. The second thing I would say is, if you think of a speed car, you see they are always very low to the ground, and they grip the road, and that's why they can pivot and turn very quickly. And the same thing happens with governance models for innovation. You have to be low to ground. You have to be very frequent touch points, because you'll find as you're going down a path, like this path that we adopted is not working, and we need to pivot. We need to actually kill this effort which we thought we were uh, you know, uh, so optimistic about, but it's not working out anymore. So have very frequent touch points, but I would say not very heavy touch points. You don't want big PowerPoints and all that, but frequently low fidelity touch points, so that we can quickly figure out, okay, what needs to be done, and let's pivot, or let's add something more what we need to do. So those are two big best practices I would share when it comes to governance models.
Very good.
I
Kelly,
think
would you like to add on that?
yeah, just one or two quick things. I 100% agree with everything that's been said, and I just to add, I also think it's really important that we celebrate the wins. I think that if we like where governance risks becoming bureaucratic is when you have hierarchical decision making and you start to lose sight of the accomplishments that teams have made. And when we think about transformational success, at the core of it is really, are you changing the culture? And we all know that changing the culture is the hardest part of transformation. But if you start to stifle the wins, then you're very going to quickly kill all of the excitement that you were getting. So to ensure that you don't risk that governance becoming bureaucratic, I think what Anu was saying about staying close to the ground and ensuring that you can provide guardrails where necessary so that folks don't go rogue and start to go off in other directions, as Riaz was mentioning, but you also celebrate those wins and you highlight the metrics if that's how you're measuring success, or any other wins that the teams are creating. I think it can really keep that spirit and excitement going, even while you're maintaining control and oversight of the overall transformational initiative.
That's an excellent point. I'm scanning as you're speaking. There's some questions coming up here, and I ask the audience to upvote because there's so many questions now. It's hard to see all of them. Upvote the ones that you want me to prioritize. But one of the questions that has come up that I thought that I was able to connect with this topic is I think it's an interesting one. We're curious about your perspective on this. There are a lot of organizations today, for obvious reasons. We have exponential technologies. We have a pandemic that has accelerated digitization across organizations and the implementation of these exponential technologies. But someone has pointed out that the vast majority of digital transformations fail, and they fail not because of technology. They fail because of other aspects of the transformation. And there is a tendency for us to start thinking about business transformation today, and people equate that to technology. But there is much more to business transformation than just a technological component. What are your perspectives on that? How did you decide what you want to transform into, and beyond just technology? What aspects of the culture need to shift to support the implementation of these new technologies? So curious about what your experiences have been like on shifting your culture as you digitize a lot of your businesses.
I think so. Another example of, like, we all talk about technology because it's the most tangible, but one of the other challenges that we're going through is ensuring that we're adopting processes well. And when I say process, I think I get like a visceral reaction from a lot of my stakeholders because we come from such an innovative culture. A lot of the work that we've done historically has been, hey, there's a client with a very specific need and a use case that we need to solve for, and we create a custom solution that's really, really successful. And so we want to scale that across multiple clients, multiple geographies. But the problem is that initial use case was never built for scale. And so I joke with a lot of my peers and I say, you guys are the dreamers, and I appreciate that. I'm not going to dream up the next great latent demand to solve a client need and develop a new product around that. But let's take your dream and I'll help you turn it into reality. We'll figure out what the processes need to be so that we can ensure success. And so a big part of the transformation that we're trying to drive is introducing process thinking as a part of our DNA and trying to change that visceral reaction into a positive one, and having people embrace that process isn't a bad word, but it's one that, a phrase I use often is 5 minutes of hard work up front will save you 5 hours of heartache in the long run. And I think that's critical as well.
I look at, any transformation, whether it's digital or not, I think there are some common requirements or flavors to make it happen. Number one is you got to have a clear vision of what you want to achieve, and be very open to the fact that the roadmap to that will not be a straight line. And I think what happens is when it's not a straight line, people think it's a failure. And that's not right. I mean, you will have pivots and you will have turns, and you may have to change your directions a little bit. I think the second big important factor for success is also to make sure that you have the right resources. So I have seen people who have these massive visions, but they just are not able to give the focus. And I think Riaz talked about it earlier, where you start something and then you get quickly defocused and go for the next big thing. I think the third one is, the whole concept of transdisciplinary thinking. So you can't innovate if you're thinking the same way. You have to have, you can't innovate if you're still thinking in your silos and just coming together for some cross-functional meetings and then you go back your merry way. If you look at all innovations, I mean, if you look at the journey of Amazon, it all started with someone saying, let's have a bookstore. It worked. Then they said, oh, why not we have a multiple product store? So now they're the biggest online retailer. Then they said, oh, we need all this technology and server space to support our store. Why not we actually give it as software as a service? So if you see, there was always a transdisciplinary thinking where they kept expanding their thought. And that happened because a group of people probably came together to think more broadly. So one of our experiences having these cross-functional squads really help. So they think as one team towards a vision rather than engineering and business, etc., differently. And I think the last point that I made earlier also is you want to make sure that people in the team are not just a microcosm of your larger organization. You're injecting it with, bold thinkers, people who are unafraid to question the status quo. But that's how you drive innovation. So these are some things which I've found really helpful in driving a transformation.
I think it's really magic that you and Kelly have talked about these two forces that pull in different directions. The process excellence side that's pulling in one direction, the discipline approach, and then you have the innovation, which requires a different perspective at the problem fundamentally to shift it. To quote a great designer friend of mine, you can't design cars by squeezing efficiencies out of horses. So you need to take a different perspective at a transportation opportunity. So Riaz, you wanted to add to that, so I'm gonna let you carry on. Go ahead.
I'm gonna make it short. I would just want to add to Kelly and Anu. I think that they spot on. We speak the same language here. I think a couple of more things. I think many times transformation fails because we don't manage expectations well. Most of the time, the board, the stakeholders, they think that the benefits are straight line. Well, usually it's exponential. It starts with like no benefits, very little, and then maybe year 10 or 5, whatever the journey is, you see like then the exponential. Look at Tesla, right? You know, they invested so much. So manage expectations is one thing. Not only expectations for your sponsors, but also your customers and your people. So going back to Kelly and about change management, we talked about, and probably this is almost always missed. We don't celebrate success. We don't talk about people. We set a strategy, we give the tools to the employees, and we said, okay, go and do it. But what about change? What about change adoption? How fast can we get to that change adoption? And sometimes we throw so much at them. So there's so many efforts, so many initiatives that somehow derail the efforts as well. I mean, I just wanted to add those a couple of elements because I've seen it where, I mean, the whole transformation failed because, well, the board does not believe in it anymore because they don't see the value. Well, wait a second, we have to wait. It's a longer investment, or the people do not adopt, or the process is not correct. So we're building technology based on a broken process, or the technology is not scalable. It's not for the future. It's for today. Well, we need to invest in future's technology, not today's technology. And then you have all this heritage of technical debt that is like handcuffing you. So how you can bridge all of those to deliver those transformational efforts.
This is a great point and segue to a question that I'm going to pick up from the audience here that Anthony Newman has posed. And what Anthony talks about is the fact that the practitioners who are in the bowels of the organization, you know, implementing improvements and innovations, they realize that having a disciplined framework for doing that is very important, and it helps them actually scale their ability to and effectiveness to implement improvements and innovations. However, a lot of them are getting bombarded by, oh, we need to digitize and we need to do fast, and then we need to move really fast on this. And technology is a great thing, but also technology can make stupid happen at the speed of light. So you have to be careful about the technology you choose. Question is, from a practitioner's perspective who is implementing improvements and innovations, they believe that foundational methodologies like Lean, like Six Sigma, like operational excellence are critically important to and enablers for this digital journey. But often the digital journey kind of like trumps that. What is your thought about disciplined approaches to implementation of improvements and innovation, and there's a bit of a battle with digitize as fast as possible. How are you handling that pressure? And then the second part to that question is that how do you communicate to senior leaders that it's not just about adopting new technologies, that we need to have some level of structured discipline approach to effectively and efficiently leverage those technologies. So how does this communication happen on your organizations?
We're actually experiencing that exact challenge right now. So we have, I mentioned some of our legacy is a bit of a bad word, negative connotation, but they're some of our older platforms, and we're completely replatforming the modular design, configurable to client needs, all of the great stuff that new technology can enable that we didn't tap into holistically 20 years ago. But the problem is we've jumped straight into developing the new code. And we've said, well, we know what we want the new platform to do. We want to go and write the new platform and get it out there as quickly as possible. It's going to deliver infrastructure savings. It's going to make it faster to market for client launches. The problem is if we don't pause and take a moment to the point of leveraging things like Lean and Six Sigma to design our processes from day one, all we're doing is rebuilding a broken system onto a new system. And it's a complete waste of investment dollars. And so you're right, it does take a little bit of stakeholder communication, and particularly executive stakeholder communication, to help them understand, like, no, it's in our best interest to spend an extra 4, 6, 12 weeks on designing the future state process so that we can be sure that we're building the underlying system architecture to support it well. Otherwise, you're going to end up, they always call it day 2. On day 2, we're going to develop your operational improvements. Right now, we just want to get the technology out the door. Problem is, day 2 rarely comes. And next thing you know, you're looking at another replatforming effort and another one and another one. And to my earlier point of 5 minutes of hard work saves you 5 hours of heartache in the long run, this is a perfect example of if you can think about, from a practitioner's perspective, if you can think about how you want to design what you want the technology to do for you first, you'll get the technology right the first time as opposed to redoing it over and over and over again.
I think if
Thank you
I
for
was
that
to add to
transparency.
that, I would,
That's
sorry,
excellent.
go ahead.
No, I was just
I
acknowledging
think,
that and appreciating Kelly's openness about that, because sometimes people look from outside and think that, oh, no, Mastercard, has it all figured out, right? It's this lean mean machine, and the business transformation is so successful. But you're really talking about the challenges that you have from within very openly, and we appreciate that. Anu, please go ahead.
I think I would look at it in a couple of ways. One is if I look at the discipline of lean or Six Sigma, or even agile, it's all three of them are extremely customer focused, and you cannot drive any transformation unless you're very customer focused. So I think having that discipline really helps the organization be thinking about the value to the customer and designing the future aligned to that value to the customer. The second part, which I see, I look at things, disciplines like lean or agile are basically, I call it foundational. So think about if you want to go fast on a road, if the road is well tarred, you can go really fast on that road. So if you look at organizations that are successful, a lot of them have this underlying discipline that helps teams work together. They have a common language on how to drive things. They have some good principles and methods of driving change and change management. So I see those as foundational to help drive a successful transformation. And then coming to the adoption of technologies, one of the things we look at in Morningstar is as long as we are able to add value to the customer, as long as we're able to live up to our mission of empowering investors, we are kind of agnostic to the technology. We don't really want to go for the brightest, shiniest technology and the newest technology as much as we want to go to the technology that works. And I remember about 10 years ago, I'd gone to a Toyota, factory. And I remember talking, Toyota is really good at modernizing their factories, but at the same time, very lean factories. And one of the things they said is, we go for technology that is going to help us. We don't really care whether it's traditional technology or emerging technologies or the latest and the brightest technologies. So I think that's something we have, organizations need to remember, that they do not need to become slaves to the technology, but the technology is a slave to their vision and value to the customer.
Tremendous
I would
perspective.
like to second
Riaz,
that,
what are your
that,
thoughts
that
on that?
thought. Yeah, I'd like to second that thought of Anu and Kelly. I mean, so a couple of things just to put the icing on the cake. I think it was the one thing that is very critical is that many people, they just see those shiny objects, they hear about a certain technology, a certain practice, and they go and jump, and it's like, this is what we want to do. It may not really fit the company or the organization or the culture or whatever the technical infrastructure that they have at the right moment. So again, going back to what really works, what really is good for the company for now and for the future, and to have that customer-centric mindset, that at the end of the day, we're here to serve the customers, and the customers are the one who are acquiring our products and services. So among all of this becomes, the which is the strategy, right? So this is like the strategy that we want to have, and then there's the practice or the delivery mechanism. So Kelly mentioned about the pre-processing or process improvement or process mapping before implementing technology is very important, because again, like we put technology in place, and sometimes we overpromise and underdeliver, because maybe the technology provider overpromised us, or maybe we overpromised the senior leaders, thinking that this technology is a silver bullet that will solve all wars hunger. But again, manage expectation becomes the third element, which is the people aspect, and making sure that we address the communication element, how we communicate, be truthful to what exactly we are working on, what the future state look like, what's the interim state is, and how that look like, and how would the benefits and ROI would start to flow and when. So all of this is very important. I guess like putting all this together, I think to answer the question that you just asked, you asked how to communicate and how to from a practitioner perspective deliver those outcomes. Just a couple of thoughts from my own.
That's excellent, Rios. Thank you for that. And I ask the audience to continue to ask the questions and rank the questions. I'm scanning them as the speakers are providing their insights. And one of the themes that has emerged as well has to do with the real success factors. So let's step back a little bit for a moment here. Look at the transformations, and first of all, I'm going to let you define success in your own terms. Okay, that means different things for different organizations. On the successful large-scale transformation that you're going through. You're here because you have been part of those. Now, we know that there are many challenges, even on successful ones for sure. But if you back up and you look at the most important factors that you think that created a success, that made the transformation successful, what would be, maybe the top factors, 1, 2, doesn't matter how many, but just the critical few that success factors that you have found in hindsight, look back at the transformation, and because people are looking for maybe the signposts that they should be paying attention to in their own transformation. So what would be some of those critical success factors looking back at your successful transformation?
I want to maybe start with giving a hint here. So I think everything starts with data. So without data, we are just people with opinion. So whatever, whether it's a technology we want to change, which technology, which aspect, which process, which segment, which product, which country, all of this based on data that tells us where we should focus and then what we should start. So it's really a people, process, technology, data. But I would like to use data as you asked what we should probably start, and I think we should always start with data to tell us what we should start with and where and when, and then
Let me rephrase that. Not necessarily what we start with. I'm interested in what are the main success factors, and data could be it, but what are the main success factors for that successful transformation? So is there something else other than data that I take that data is one of them you start with, probably very important, but is there another success factor as you look back?
Yeah, again, I think it's a people, process, technology, data element. So it's the 4 of those. And then on top of this, again, you have to make sure that your solution is scalable, and then for the future. It's not for today. It's working, and we have to be nimble and making sure, specifically in the specific area, time that we are at, like the pandemic. We have to be nimble. We are probably doing things that we were doing in 5 years in 3 months now, because we have to change quickly and put like systems quickly in place, or change people quickly, or change processes quickly, because everything is changing quickly. So I think it's the strategy itself, the delivery mechanism, which is again the lean and project management and change management and agile. And then of course the culture. The culture is amazing. We cannot do it ourselves, the 3 of us as leaders. We need the whole crew, we need the whole people. So we need to hold their hands and move forward in that transformation journey. So I think it's all this 3-legged stools.
This is probably, thanks, Rios. This is probably to state the obvious a little bit, but I would be remiss if I didn't say it out loud. Is you need to have support and buy-in. And I use both of those words because you need the top-down support, and you need the bottoms up buy-in. Because if you don't have your executive leadership team bought into the vision or championing the vision and encouraging the vision, or even directly instituting it as a part of goals and objectives, et cetera, then it's going to get lost in the shuffle. But similarly, if it's just being pushed down from the top and the folks who are on the ground needing to execute the change, needing to be bought into the change, are not bought in, then you're not going to be successful either. So when I think about when your final milestones are some of the KPIs that Anu was mentioning earlier, or some of the financial expectations associated with it, whether it be top line growth or bottom line savings, none of that will be achieved if you don't have everyone involved from the top of the organization all the way through your frontline team bought into the change. You're not going to be successful.
Very good. Anu, your audio right now is off. Just do a little tap on the mic to make sure that you can come.
Sorry. So I think I would add a couple of things. Number one, you want to make sure that every transformation starts with the customer. I think the understanding the value of the customer is most important, because if you have not understood that well, you will go down a path which is not eventually going to add value and hence will not be successful. So starts with that. I think a couple of other things: constancy of purpose. Transformations take time. If you get distracted or if you start pulling back because you haven't got immediate instant karma, it's not going to work. So the constancy of purpose is extremely important. And I think the last one is energizing the teams and being true to the transformation mission or the vision. So what I mean by that is keep energizing the teams, but you are going to come across failures on the way. Be ready to pivot. Be true to your vision. Do not be afraid to say, well, this path didn't work, because, like I said earlier, transformations are not a straight line. They are quite a long winded path sometimes, and be ready to take that long winded path, but at the same time, energizing your teams every step of the way.
That's well captured by all of you. Again, was someone that I respect a bit and did a lot of research in this area, about the signature of mediocrity is not an unwillingness to change. The signature of mediocrity is chronic inconsistency with purpose, with the purpose that you have. That's actually the definition of ultimate discipline. So on this topic, Akil Motuala has asked a question that I think Anu already talked a little bit about. He asks, so we're going to be doing this transformation in our organization. What is your recommendation? One fell swoop or more of an iterative approach to it? I think you answered to this, but I would just want to hear what you all think about that.
I think it's an iterative approach. I mean, you always want to keep experimenting, because there's a lot of serendipity in transformation. You will go down the path and you'll discover new and better ways of doing things, actually. And if you just have a straight shot approach, you just don't allow that serendipity, and you must allow the serendipity, because you'll be amazed at how many new technologies are coming, new ways are coming up. You should be networking with external organizations like universities, and other organizations who are doing like-minded work, and you will suddenly come across different ways of doing things. So you really want to do a very iterative approach, and constant learning is so critical. Constant learning.
Yeah, and while while your ultimate vision may not change, I mean, that's sort of the purpose of a vision and a strategy, is that it should remain constant. The way that you get there likely will, because there will be new factors that are introduced. Not only will you have learnings along the way, and you'll become smarter about how you want to approach solving the problem, and therefore you might even expand upon that vision. But also, we don't know what we don't know, right? Like, none of us knew about COVID 9-10 months ago. When we started along our journey, it was pre-integration of a handful of acquisitions that have added a number of different flavors of complexity and benefit that we hadn't included in our original plans. And so I think that if you're able to remain iterative, it gives you enough flexibility to incorporate the things you didn't know when you first defined your ultimate vision.
Yeah, I can't agree more with both Kelly and Anu. I can give you many examples where sometimes we had to make difficult decisions, after spending a few millions of dollars on a solution, and then boom, somebody come up with a wonderful kind of other solution that we have to go back to the board and convince them that we have to write off like a $10 million to adopt a new technology that actually is much better, but was not existent like 2 years ago, but now it exists. And there's no point to reinvest in whatever we are working on. Again, like there's sometimes we have to make those hard decisions, and that's kind of where the shifting the mindset and shifting and pivoting quickly sometimes makes perfect sense, and almost all the time works to adhere to the customer's expectations, because again, things are changing every day now, and with the changes of environment and technologies, so things are the customers are behaving differently, the market is changing every day, and then of course the technology, as I mentioned, is changing, and sometimes you may have to take like that hard decision, or make that a hard decision to say, okay, you know what, we have done this, but it may have not worked very well, but now we have another solution that works very, very, very well, or better, and much scalable. So just another addition there.
Thank you very much. Well, listen, our time is up. We could certainly talk about this for hours, and so grateful, Kelly, Riaz, Anu, for sharing incredible expertise and insights with our global audience of business transformation, operational excellence leaders. We really appreciate the gift of your time and expertise.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's some of the best in the world when it comes to successful business, cultural business, and digital transformations. And so wonderful to learn directly from them. Some of your questions that we see there in the chat, we relay them, and we look forward to further questions in the next few sessions that we're going to have. We'll be back here at the main stage at 12:45 with the workshop on the wheel of sustainability, engaging and empowering teams to ensure that their solutions live on, that they're implemented and sustained. We'll talk about stewardship, ownership, and really some very insightful approaches to implement sustainable solutions. So don't forget that we're going to be looking at the award winners for the most successful business transformations in the world today at 3:45 Eastern Time at the awards ceremony. Mark that on your calendar. You do not want to miss what the best of the best look like in multiple categories, in multiple industries. So we look forward to seeing you back then at 12:45 for the session with Adam Lawrence and implementing sustainable solutions. Thank you.